So these guys that are posting plaid shirts, flannels,
Yeah.
they're drinking beers, like close-up photos. Do they don't know what to do, or they
No,
just
they
don't know?
don't- yeah.
Like they literally don't know what the system is.
So there's three genders. Ready? LBGTP are going to get mad at me. There's three genders. Ready? Here's the three genders: high status men, low status men, women. Those are the three genders. High status men and low status men have nothing to do with each other. They don't live the same lives. They have different life expectancies. They have different numbers of sexual partners. They make a different amount of money. One low status men have a scarcity mentality. High status men have an abundance mentality. I'm not saying high status men are good people. Some of them are shitty people. But high status men, high performers, they just live a completely different lifestyle. They don't have a little bit more financial options and sexual options than low status men. They have 100 times more. In fact, you might say all of the options are in this low status top 20% of men category, right? So what happens with these guys is that the ones that are, most of us are just born, unless you're born into money or you have extremely charismatic parents or something like that, you're just born into a situation where you're like low status and women want you to quote unquote figure it out. They want you to figure it out, but they're not going to figure it out for you. You understand, if you and I were in Des Moines or some other city, Wichita, wherever, and we go out, there's some people out having fun, good looking people are out having fun, having a blast. We're not invited though, because they don't know us. We're not invited. Like in general, if you don't get it, then the world isn't going to teach it to you. They're not going to teach you to get it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If you're a low status man, guys are having a party where it's 7 girls to every guy and they don't want you there. They don't want you to come. They don't want you to fucking know about it. If you go on Google and search high status party, you're never going to find it. If you go right now and go on Google, what's the best strip club in Las Vegas? They're going to tell you it's Chicas Bonitas or fucking Sonias. But we all know it's CH3, the Rhino, and Sapphire. But you're never going to see it. The world's never going to tell you where the high status shit is. You have to figure out a way to do it. So these men are clueless, but it's not their fault that they're clueless because their whole life they've been raised on this phone. They don't have personal interactions. They can't maintain eye contact anymore. They've never been in a fist fight. They don't know how to talk to a girl. There's just these little basic things. And when you pick on them, they cry. When you pick on them, they report your account and try to get you deleted. That's what happens. When you just josh them a little bit or make fun of them. They're just so fragile, such fragile individuals. And so you put them on there on social media and they just never got it. And their paradigm for what success is, they learned from Disney and their church and their family, who don't understand how to talk to women or how to be financially successful. With some exceptions. If you have a father who was like an incredible entrepreneur and who was just a killer and just absolutely a killer sales guy, stuff like that. If you have somebody like that, for sure, that's a difference. But for most of us, that wasn't the case. Most of us, we got participation trophies. That kind of participation trophy lifestyle leads to men not knowing what to do on social media. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and do you think that this is an intentional direction that men has been shifted in, or you think it's just like a byproduct of culture changing over time?
So this is an interesting question I'm going to discuss with Richard Reeves on Friday. He's coming on my show. He's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute. He wrote a book called Of Boys and Men, where he goes over what different political policies have done to men and women over the last, since say 1975. So in 1975, the college admissions, it was 13 percentage points higher for men than women, and now it's 15 percentage points higher for women than men. We fixed the problem, but gone far in the other direction. There are more female pilots in the U.S. military than there are male kindergarten teachers in the United States. 5% of psychologists under the age of 30 are men. 5%. So what's happened is, because a lot of these manufacturing jobs disappeared, a lot of these sort of male-oriented jobs sort of disappeared, those men never got into nursing or education, whereas women who were mainly in nursing and education, they became lawyers, doctors, several of them became engineers. And so women started taking over this male-dominated area, but men did not do the same, and a lot of their jobs went away. So you ended up with a lot of higher unemployment for men. You ended up with men killing themselves, at incredibly high rates. Men who are divorced, who live in their 40s and 50s, after a divorce are 9 times more likely to commit suicide. These things, do I think they're intentional? No. What I think is, when you deal with identity politics, if I am this color and this gender, I'm going to go to the government and say, I want money for my color and my gender, and not for that color and that gender, and I have no empathy for them. If you do that enough times, you end up in a situation where you're going to leave some people behind. And in general, men, and more specifically African-American men, they've been hurt the worst out of anyone. in these situations, they're the ones who are like kind of being left behind as far as the workforce, as far as the family, and as far as education is concerned. Do I think it's nefarious and like conspiratorial? I do not. I think it is negligence. I think it's a function of negligence, and it's a function of, there's a great book. One of my favorite books is called Conquering the Sociopath Next Door by Dr. Martha Stout. And in the book, she talks about this thing called corporate sociopathy. It's so fascinating when you think about this. You can substitute a corporation for the government. Either way, it could be the same thing. You take a bunch of empathetic people and you put them in a corporation, which is a legal fiction, right? But it's treated like a person. You put them in a corporation, and each one of these people, they pay their taxes, they walk their dogs, they love their children. These are normal, empathetic people. But in the course of being inside of the corporation, they only have to worry about shareholders and keeping their job and then competing with other corporations. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So in total, their behavior acts as a sociopath. There's no empathy for anyone else. Individually, they're empathetic people. In total, they're like, I will do this and I get a golden parachute for $100 million. And if I don't do this, I'm fired. I am incentivized to act as a sociopath. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's called corporate sociopathy. The government is the same way. What I think has happened is you have certain political entities that are like, I want money for my group and have no empathy for another group. Does that make sense? And then of course, like the most protected class would be Anglo-American men, right? That would be, white men would be the most protected, or I'm sorry, the most privileged class under their guise, so there's no money set aside for them. And that works to a certain extent if they have the advantage, but once you get to a point where they don't have the advantage anymore, now you get to a point where 60% of college enrollment are female, 68% of the graduates are female. You are twice or 2 or 3 times more likely to get a master's degree if you are a white woman than a black man. Like things like this, and this, I'm not hateful, and I don't think it's intentional, but what's happened is we swung things so far in the other direction that we've gotten to the point now where you have a bunch of men who they don't get it. They're on social media posting weird shit. 1/3 of men under the age of 30 have no sex. 1/3 of men under the age of 30 have 0 sexual partners. 68% of Christian men.
Like they've never had sex, or
No,
they're not actively engaged?
No sexual partners within the last year. That's how the study's done. 33% of men. The concept of, I forgot what the other one was, but there's so many just crazy concepts that you can see where not all men. So like I said, high status men, low status men, like the pay wage gap. The pay wage gap is a real thing amongst the highest group of men. Of the Fortune 500 companies, I believe 44 of the Fortune 500 are led by women, right? But Fortune 500 CEOs account for less than 1/1000th of 1% of the population. This is not a normal statistical distribution. Amongst the highest strata, men dominate, unquestionably. All of our presidents, CEOs of companies, professional athletes, actors get paid more money in the highest strata. Amongst the middle class, women have absolutely caught up, and in a lot of cases, they've passed men. Amongst the middle and lower class stratas of men, the wealthiest, the smartest people alive today may be men, but the dumbest people alive today may also be men. There's one study that shows that if a man runs a corporation, you're more likely to make a profit or go bankrupt, right? Whereas for a woman, it's like in the middle standard deviation. So we're just in this weird place right now where it's like we have a bunch of men who like don't have a place. They're like, they don't have a family. Nobody wants to marry them.
Thanks for checking out this short clip from the full podcast I did. If you want to see another clip, go ahead and click the link right here. Or if you want to see the full podcast, you can click the link right here and check it out.